They say the most expensive sound in the world isn't the crash of a luxury car or the explosion of a rocket. It's the silence in a boardroom when a billionaire realizes he's a fraud. That silence could crush bone. Inside the 42nd floor conference room of MathCore Industries, Dr. Harrison Blake, the man who promised to revolutionize American transportation, stood at the head of a mahogany table, a table that cost more than most people's houses. He was sweating. Not normal sweat, a cold, oily sheen that defied the building's climate control. He raised a manicured finger and pointed at a small girl standing near the trash can. She was 8 years old, wearing a faded pink hoodie, gripping a backpack, one that had seen better days. Blake leaned in, he sneered, and his voice cracked, just enough for the microphones to catch it. "Tell you what, you fix this kid, and I'll give you $100 million. It was supposed to be a joke, a cruel throwaway line, to deflect from the disaster unfolding on the screens behind him. But 2 million people were watching, on the live stream, and none of them knew. The little girl staring back at him wasn't just a janitor's daughter. She was the only person in the room who actually understood the code. And to understand how a titan of industry ended up begging a second grader for a miracle, we have to look back at the 72 hours that burned his empire to the ground. 3 days ago, MathCore was the darling of Wall Street. Today, it was a crime scene. The crisis started with a glitch in the subroutines of the company's flagship autonomous driving AI. At first, it was minor, phantom braking on empty highways. Then it spread, sensors misreading shadows as solid objects. By yesterday afternoon, the glitches turned lethal. A 4-car pileup in Tokyo. A pedestrian struck in a crosswalk in Seattle. The lawsuits were being filed before the ambulances even left the scene. Blake's stock had hemorrhaged $3 billion in market cap since Monday morning. Now, in the glass-walled aquarium of his Manhattan headquarters, he was facing the sharks. The room was filled with the kind of men who didn't yell. They didn't have to. They destroyed you with a signature. The executives from Toyota sat stone-faced in the front row, silent, and somehow louder than any scream. The delegation from BMW whispered urgently in German, glancing at their watches. And the Ford representatives were already scrolling through their phones, probably calculating how much of MathCore's market share they could cannibalize by lunch. "Ladies and gentlemen," Blake said, forcing a smile that looked like a grimace, "we are experiencing temporary technical friction with the core algorithm. My team assures me, temporary?" The CEO of Toyota didn't even stand. He leaned forward, and his voice cut the room like a razor. "Your system killed 4 people yesterday, Dr. Blake. That is not friction. That is negligence." Blake's jaw clenched, so hard the muscles jumped. He turned his back on them and faced the wall of monitors. Behind him, 50 of the brightest minds in America were hunched over laptops. The glow of the screens lit their faces and their panic. Harvard PhDs, MIT prodigies, Stanford engineers, the elite infantry of Silicon Valley. They'd been awake for 3 days straight, fueled by Adderall and terror. Dr. Sarah Carter, his lead architect, moved in close. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week. Her hands trembled as she held out a tablet. "Harrison," she whispered, keeping her voice low so the microphones wouldn't catch it. "We've tried everything. Neural network restructuring, complete logic rewrites, reverting to the beta build. Nothing is sticking. The AI keeps rejecting the patch." Blake stared at her, eyes bloodshot, voice flat. "You're telling me I'm paying $50 million a year in salaries for a room full of people who can't fix a typo? It's not a typo, sir. It's fundamental. The logic is eating itself." Blake spun around, looking for something to hit, something to blame. In the corner of the main display, the live stream counter mocked him. 2.3 million viewers. The chat was moving so fast, it was just neon blur. Tech blogs were already drafting his obituary, the death of MathCore, the Icarus of the interstate. And then, he saw her. In the corner of the room, invisible to the masters of the universe, was Rosa. She was methodically emptying the recycling bins. Quiet, efficient, moving like someone who knows noise gets you fired. Clinging to her leg was her daughter, Maya. Most kids would be on a phone or scribbling in a coloring book. Maya was doing neither. She was staring at the wall of monitors with a terrifying intensity. Her dark eyes darted from screen to screen, tracking the cascading lines of red code. Her small fingers twitched on the strap of her backpack, tapping out a rhythm. Tap, 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 pause, tap. She wasn't seeing errors. She was hearing a song out of tune. Maya had grown up in the shadows of these glass towers. While other children learned their ABCs from Sesame Street, Maya learned logic gates from discarded programming manuals, pulled from the recycling. Her playgrounds were server rooms. Her lullabies were the hum of cooling fans. She knew the rhythm of this building better than the man who owned it. Blake needed a target for his rage, so he zeroed in on them. "This is exactly the problem," he announced, voice booming for the cameras. He gestured wide, taking in the whole room. "Real programming requires discipline, education, Ivy League credentials. You can't just walk in off the street and expect to understand complex systems." He walked toward Rosa. Rosa froze, head down, trash bag clutched like a shield. "Sir, I'm sorry," Rosa murmured, her accent thick with fear. "We are leaving. Just one more bin." No, stay," Blake said. And there was something in his eyes, cruel. He looked down at Maya. Maya didn't flinch. She didn't look at his expensive shoes or his angry face. She looked past him, at the code. "You see that, kid?" Blake jabbed a finger toward the screens, where error messages bloomed like digital bruises. "That's what happens when smart people fail. So go ahead. You think you can do better?" The room went silent. The BMW executives stopped whispering. The Ford reps looked up from their phones. "Fix this, kid, and I'll give you $100 million. Laughter rippled through the room, nervous, sycophantic, from junior staffers who knew they had to laugh to keep their jobs. It was grotesque, a billionaire punching down at a child to feel tall. Rosa grabbed Maya's arm, her face burning with shame. "Come, mija. We go now." But Maya didn't move. The laughter died as the seconds stretched. Maya's gaze finally snapped away from the screen. She looked up at Harrison Blake, not scared, not confused, just bored. She looked at him like a teacher looks at a slow student. "Sir," Blake's assistant hissed, holding a phone to his chest. "The auto executives are walking. Toyota just recalled their investment team. Let them walk," Blake shouted, losing his composure. "If they can't see the vision, they don't deserve the returns." It was a lie, and everyone knew it. This presentation was supposed to be a victory lap. Instead, it was a public execution. "Perhaps," the German representative said, standing up, buttoning his jacket, "we should consider partnerships with companies that do not treat engineering like a circus act." The words hit Blake like a fist. He watched them pack their briefcases. His empire was crumbling in real time. 4K resolution, broadcast to the world. Rosa tugged harder on Maya's arm. "Maya, monos. Now." Maya took one step toward the door, then stopped. She looked back at the main server screen. The error loop was restarting. Engineers were typing like their lives depended on it, trying to force a bypass, piling complexity on top of complexity. They were hunting for a complex answer. Because they were complex people, they assumed the problem was deep, mathematical, profound. Maya saw what they didn't. She saw the one line of code that didn't fit the pattern. It wasn't a math error. It was simpler. So obvious. 50 geniuses had stared right past it. For 3 days, Maya broke free from her mother's grip. "Hey," Maya said. Her voice was small, but in the sudden quiet of the room, it carried like a bell. Blake turned around, face purple, with exhaustion and rage. "Get out! I said get out!" Maya didn't leave. She walked past the empty chairs of the Toyota executives. She walked past the weeping lead architect. She walked right up to the main terminal console, where the command line blinked. "You're looking at the wrong line," she said. Blake blinked. "Excuse me, line 404. Maya pointed a small finger at the screen. "It's not a loop. It's a mirror." She reached for the keyboard. "Don't you touch that!" Blake roared, lunging forward, but he was too slow. Maya's finger hovered over the enter key. She didn't look at Blake. She looked at the code, and for the first time in 3 days, the twitch in her hand stopped. She smiled. And then she pressed the key. For 3 agonizing seconds, the room was silent, only the hum of the servers and the frantic heartbeat of Maya's mother, Rosa. Terrified her daughter had just broken a machine worth more than their entire neighborhood. Then, the wall of monitors blinked. The waterfall of red error messages froze mid-scroll. A collective gasp sucked the air out of the conference room. One by one, digital status bars flipped. Red to amber to a solid, piercing green. Dr. Sarah Carter, the lead architect with degrees from MIT and Stanford, stared at her tablet. Her hands were shaking again, but not from caffeine withdrawal, from shock. "System diagnostics are clearing," she whispered, voice trembling. "Latency is down 40%. The phantom braking protocols? Gone. It's clean. Impossible." Harrison Blake muttered. He looked like he'd been slapped. He stared at the screen, then at the girl, then back at the screen. "It's a glitch, a false positive. Run the simulation again." "I am running it, sir," Carter said, looking up with wide eyes. "It's perfect." The logic loop is closed. The room, that had felt like a funeral parlor, exploded into chaos. The Toyota executives, who'd been packing briefcases moments ago, stopped dead. The CEO, a man who hadn't smiled in 72 hours, stepped over a tangle of cables to get a better look. "Show me the metrics," he commanded. On the main display, the graphs that had been nosediving for 3 days suddenly spiked upward, and the MathCore stock price, visible on the side ticker, twitched and began to climb. Blake felt the floor tilt beneath him. He wasn't relieved. He was terrified. Not of bankruptcy. That was off the table now. Of humiliation. 2 million people had just watched a janitor's daughter outsmart the man on the cover of Forbes. His assistant tapped his shoulder, face pale. "Sir, check Twitter." Blake glanced at the phone. The hashtag Maya the Genius was trending ahead of the Super Bowl. And beneath it, a meme of Blake's shocked face, captioned, "The billion-dollar dunce. The world loves a prodigy, but it lives for the fall of a tyrant." Blake straightened his tie. Desperate to reclaim the wheel, he forced a laugh. It sounded like grinding glass. "Well," he boomed, addressing the camera, "it seems we had a lucky break. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. Isn't that right?" He glared at Maya, expecting her to shrink. She didn't. She looked at him with that same calm, boredom. "It wasn't luck," Maya said. "And the clock wasn't broken. You just didn't know how to read it." The room's laughter died instantly. "Excuse me?" Blake stepped closer, towering over her. "You were looking at the hard parts," Maya explained, voice clear, steady. "You have 50 people looking for a complex math error, but the mistake was in the syntax. You were telling the computer to become the variable instead of checking for it. You were shouting at it when you should have been listening." The BMW technical director, a man with 30 years of engineering experience, let out a low whistle. "She's right," he murmured. "It's a syntax recursion error. We were so focused on the neural net, we missed the basic command line." He looked at Maya with genuine awe. "Who taught you this, little one?" "Nobody," Maya shrugged. "I just read the manuals." In the trash, Rosa stepped forward, took Maya's hand. She felt the shift in the room. Admiration was dangerous, but the look in Harrison Blake's eyes was worse. It wasn't anger anymore. It was calculation. "We go now," Rosa said, pulling Maya toward the door. "Please, sir. We just want to go home." "Not so fast," Blake said. He moved quickly, blocking their path. The cameras were still rolling, but Blake had forgotten them. He watched Maya, the way a wolf watches a lamb, or the way a venture capitalist watches a patent. He hasn't bought yet. "I made a promise," Blake said, voice dropping, silky, predatory. $100 million to whoever fixed the code. "I'm a man of my word." He knelt down, bringing his face level with Maya's. "But $100 million is a lot of money for a little girl. You need someone to manage it, someone to guide you." He stood and turned to Rosa. The smile on his face never reached his eyes. "Rosa, isn't it? I think we need to discuss your daughter's future, because she doesn't belong in a public school anymore. She belongs to MathCore." Rosa tightened her grip on Maya's hand. A mother's instinct told her the danger didn't end when the code was fixed. It had just begun. "We don't want your money," Rosa said, voice shaking. "We quit." She turned to leave. 2 large security guards stepped in front of the double doors, arms crossed. Blake's smile vanished. "Nobody quits MathCore until I say they do." And then the livestream feed cut to black. But the cameras were only off for the public. Inside that boardroom, the recording light on the internal server was still blinking, steady, unblinking, red. And the silence in the room was heavier than the humid Manhattan air outside. "Move out of the way," Rosa said, voice shaking, but her chin held high. She pulled Maya closer, shielding her from the suits, from the screens, from the billion-dollar desperation radiating off Harrison Blake. "Sit down," Blake commanded, voice tight. "Nobody leaves until I figure out what just happened." What happened? The CEO of Toyota North America interrupted, stepping forward. Is that a child just fixed a problem your entire R&D department couldn't solve in 72 hours? He turned his gaze to Maya. It wasn't warm, it was calculating. He looked at her, like a prospector looks at a vein of gold in a mud pit. Dr. Blake, the executive continued, are there other, easy parts your team hasn't checked? Aunt Blake felt sweat trickle down his spine. Absolutely not. This is absurd. We have protocols. We have ISO 9001 compliance standards. You want me to let a second grader audit the kernel of a level 5 autonomous driving system? It's a liability nightmare. The liability, the BMW technical director cut in, checking his phone, is the 4 dead people in Tokyo and the 40% drop in your stock price. If she can find more errors, let her find them. It wasn't a request, it was an ultimatum from the people holding the purse strings. Blake looked at the investors, then at Maya. He was trapped. Say no, and he looks terrified of a little girl. Say yes, and he admits his $50 million team is incompetent. Fine, Blake hissed through gritted teeth. He gestured sharply at the wall of screens. Go ahead, but when she comes up empty, and she will, this charade ends immediately. Maya didn't wait for permission. She pulled away from her mother's grip and walked back to the console. She didn't look at the adults. She didn't care about the tension, the money, the egos. To Maya, the code wasn't business. It was music. And right now, the orchestra was out of tune. She stood before the glowing blue wall. Her dark eyes darted left, right, up, down, 10 seconds, 20. There, she said, pointing to a block of code in the subroutine for emergency braking. Doctor. Sarah Carter rushed over, heels clicking, frantic, on the marble floor. She squinted at the line Maya indicated. Same problem, Maya said, voice flat. You're telling the car to speed up to avoid a collision instead of asking if it should speed up. Carter typed a command. Her face went pale. My God, she's right. The logic gate is inverted. In a head-on scenario, the car would have accelerated into the impact. A collective gasp swept the room. And there, Maya said, walking 3 feet to the right, and there, and down there. She moved with the efficiency of a surgeon, dissecting the rotting carcass of MathCore's code. Here, the car thinks it should brake hard, but it doesn't check tire friction first. And here, the sensor ignores pedestrians if they're wearing dark clothes at night. Dr. Carter was typing furiously now, trying to keep up. Every time Maya pointed, a red light turned green. How? Carter whispered, staring at the girl. We ran millions of simulations. We have the best debugging software in the world. How are you seeing this? Maya turned to look at them. She shrugged, adjusting her backpack strap. When my mom cleans the windows in this building, Maya said, she has to clean the corners. She looks at the glass. You guys only look at the view. It was a simple sentence, and it hit the room like a grenade. Blake watched, helpless, as his team of MIT graduates and Stanford PhDs got dismantled by a girl who learned to code, watching reflections. In the glass her mother polished. His phone buzzed in his pocket, then again, until it became a constant vibration. He risked a glance. The internal feed had leaked. Someone in the room, probably the Ford rep, was live streaming from their phone. Maya the genius was now the #1 trending topic globally. TechCrunch had already published a headline, the $100 million kid. Dr. Blake, the Ford representative, said, holding up his tablet, our internal analysis shows the patches Maya identified have eliminated 93% of the processing errors. Do you have any idea what that does to our liability insurance? It lowers it, Blake said. Voice hollow. It saves us millions a month, the rep corrected. Millions. The mood in the room shifted instantly. The fear was gone. In its place, the shark frenzy of capitalism. The auto executives weren't looking at the door anymore. They were looking at the other screens. I propose we extend this consultation, the Toyota CEO said, voice carrying a new weight. If she can fix the cars, what about the rest? Blake's heart stopped. The rest? Your company runs more than just cars, Harrison, the CEO said. You manage the New York traffic grid. You run the triage algorithms for 3 major hospital networks. You manage high-frequency trading for the pension funds. He gestured to the other monitors, the ones still dark or running in background mode. Turn them on, the CEO ordered. Let's see what else she can find. No, Blake shouted. Too loud, too sudden. The The room went dead silent. "We are talking about critical infrastructure," Blake stammered, trying to pull back his panic. "National security level systems. We can't just open the hood. For a child, there are regulations, compliance issues." "Compliance?" The BMW director laughed. "Dry. You just admitted your car software was instructing vehicles to accelerate into crashes. I think we're past paperwork." "Open the files, Dr. Carter," the Ford rep said. Carter looked at Blake, then at the investors. She saw which way the wind was blowing. She typed a command. The side monitors flared to life. On the left, complex grids of city traffic. On the right, a scrolling ticker from a financial trading algorithm. And in the center, the life support triage system for Metro General Hospital. Maya walked toward the new screens. Blake lunged forward, grabbing the back of a chair to steady himself. "Don't. Maya, don't look at those." "Why not?" Maya asked, tilting her head. "Are they broken too?" "They are complex," Blake yelled, sweat beading on his forehead. "They handle life and death. They don't care about your little logic tricks." "Computers don't care about life and death," Maya said, calm. "They just follow instructions. They don't care who gives the instructions, as long as they make sense." She stepped up to the financial algorithm screen, a waterfall of numbers, moving faster than the human eye could track. The heartbeat of MathCore's true revenue, the dark pools of automated trading. Maya watched the numbers cascade. Blake held his breath. He prayed she wouldn't see it. He prayed she would only see math. But Maya didn't just see math. She saw intent. Her brow furrowed. The rhythmic tapping of her finger against her leg stopped. She leaned in closer, nose almost touching the glass. "That's weird," she whispered. "What is it?" Dr. Carter asked, stepping up behind her. "Is it another syntax error?" Maya shook her head, slow. Then she turned around, and for the first time, she looked directly at Harrison Blake. Her eyes weren't bored anymore. They were confused and frightened. "It's not an error," Maya said, voice trembling, just a little. "The computer isn't making a mistake, Dr. Blake." She pointed a shaking finger at the line of code controlling the pension fund allocations. "It's doing exactly what you told it to do. It's stealing." The word hung in the recycled air of the boardroom, like ozone before lightning. In corporate America, you can survive incompetence, you can survive bankruptcy, but you cannot survive an allegation of fraud broadcast live to 4 million people. Harrison Blake didn't blink. He didn't breathe. He just stared at the 8-year-old girl who had accidentally put a noose around his neck. It's not stealing," Blake stammered, voice climbing an octave. "It's fractional rounding. It's a standard high-frequency trading protocol. It's complex financial arbitrage that a child couldn't possibly understand." Maya didn't back down. She pointed to the cascading numbers on the screen. "You take the pennies from the teacher's pension fund," she said, tracing the line of code, "and you move them to this account, the one marked admin_offshore. That's not math, Mr. Blake. That's taking." The room erupted. Blake's assistant sprinted over. Phone pressed to his ear, face the color of ash. "Sir, I have Microsoft on line 1. Google is holding on line 2. They're not calling for you." That Blake whipped around. "What?" "They want the girl," the assistant whispered, loud enough for the microphone to catch. "They want to discuss partnership opportunities with Maya. Google is asking if she has legal representation." The sharks weren't circling anymore. They were taking bites out of the boat. The investors in the room, men who were ready to crucify Blake 10 minutes ago, were suddenly scrambling. "This has gone too far," Blake roared, slamming his hand on the mahogany table. "Cut the feed, now!" He turned to Rosa, eyes wild. "Maya, thank you for your cute little contribution, but it is time for you to leave, now." "Actually," the Toyota CEO interrupted, standing up. He blocked Blake's path to the girl. "We would like Maya to stay. We are prepared to pay significant consultancy fees for her continued assistance. If she can fix the cars, she can fix the rest. She is 8 years old," Blake screamed, losing the last shred of composure. "There are child labor laws. There are liability statutes. You cannot hire a second grader to audit a Fortune 500 company." Maya looked at the adults, arguing over her head. She tugged on Dr. Carter's lab coat. "Can I just look at the hospital screen?" she asked. "Quiet. I promise I won't break it." It was an innocent request, and it silenced the room. How do you say no to the only person in the building who knows what they're doing? Dr. Carter, defying her boss for the first time in her career, keyed in the command. The hospital management grid appeared. Maya didn't hesitate. She stepped up to the glass. Here, she said, pointing, and here. The medicine dispensers are confused. They think grams means milligrams. That's why the patients are getting sick. Dr. Carter typed the fix. The system flashed green. And here, Maya said, moving to the traffic grid. The lights turn red for too long. It makes the cars angry. Another fix. Another green light. Blake watched his world crumble. Every error she found was a nail in his coffin. Every fix, a public indictment of his failure. His phone was vibrating off the table. Shareholders, the board of directors, maybe even the DOJ. Stop, Blake whispered. Then he yelled it. Stop. The room froze. This is my company, Blake hissed, voice trembling with humiliation and rage. My systems. My legacy. I will not stand here and let some untrained child make me look incompetent. Maya turned slowly. She looked at him with the devastating honesty only a child can carry. But Mr. Blake, she said, voice echoing in the silence, I'm not making you look incompetent. You already were incompetent. I'm just showing everyone. It was a nuclear strike. The clip hit Twitter. Before Maya even finished the sentence, hashtag Maya roasts Blake started trending worldwide. Blake stood there, stripped naked in front of the world. He had two choices, admit defeat and go to prison, or double down and destroy the witness. He chose destruction. Fine, Blake said. A cold smile spread across his face. Cruel. The smile of a gambler, pushing his last chips to the center. You think you're so clever? Let's make this interesting. He snapped his fingers. Bring up the master architecture. His assistant hesitated, then typed the command. The main wall dissolved into a terrifying web of data. Millions of lines of code, the entire math core infrastructure. Traffic, finance, healthcare, defense contracts, a digital ocean. 24 hours, Blake declared, pointing at the wall. You find and fix every error in our entire infrastructure, all of it. If you succeed, I will personally write you a check for $100 million. The room gasped, but Blake leaned in, eyes hard as flint. When you fail, and you will fail, because you are a child playing a man's game. You and your mother leave this building forever. You sign an NDA. And we announce to the world that your earlier success was nothing but a fluke, beginner's luck. Rosa stepped in front of her daughter. Maya, no, we don't need his money. You've proven yourself. Let's go. It's a lot of code, Dr. Carter warned. Gentle. This isn't fixing a glitch, Maya. This is enterprise-level architecture. It's impossible. Exactly, Blake sneered. Real systems require real expertise, not party tricks. Of course, if you're scared, we can call it off. No shame in admitting you're out of your depth. Maya looked at the wall. To anyone else, it was chaos. To her, it was just a very large, very messy room that needed cleaning. She looked up at Blake. I'm not scared, Mr. Blake, she said, soft. Are you? The challenge hung in the air, like electricity. Blake realized too late he'd been backed into a corner by a girl with a Hello Kitty keychain on her backpack. Start the clock, Blake barked. 24 hours. Starting now. It was 2:17 p.m. Maya climbed into Dr. Carter's oversized ergonomic chair. Her feet didn't touch the ground. She cracked her knuckles, a habit she'd picked up watching the engineers through the glass. For the first hour, she didn't type a single word. She just watched the code scroll, eyes darting back and forth, absorbing the rhythm of the machine. Blake paced in the back of the room, checking his watch, confident the sheer volume of data would crush her. But by hour 3, Maya sat up. She hadn't been reading line by line. She'd been looking for the fingerprint. I see it, she whispered to herself. She started to type. What is she doing? The Ford exec whispered. To Dr. Carter. She's batch processing, Carter said, jaw-dropping. She's not fixing the errors one by one. She found the pattern. She realized the mistakes aren't random. Maya's fingers flew across the keyboard. Green lights started popping up across the master architecture, like popcorn. But then, at 5 p.m., Maya stopped. Her hands hovered over the keys. The rhythm broke. She leaned into the screen, squinting at a block of code, buried deep within the core operating system. A file, locked, encrypted, hidden behind 3 firewalls. What's wrong? Rosa asked, sensing the change in her daughter's posture. Maya turned around. The color had drained from her face. Someone wrote this on purpose, Maya said. Small voice echoing, in the dead silence of the boardroom. Harrison Blake stared at the screen, face a mask of pale fury. For a split second, he looked like he might lunge at the 8-year-old girl. Don't be ridiculous, Blake snapped, recovering fast. That is legacy code. A remnant from a previous merger. It's deprecated. It doesn't do anything. It does do something, Maya countered, pointing a small finger. It sends money away. Every time a trade happens, it takes a little bit. Before the auto executives could ask more, Blake clapped his hands, loud. Enough! You're wasting time on accounting glitches. While the clock is ticking, you have 17 hours left to fix the critical infrastructure. Focus. Or the deal is off. He was deflecting. Everyone knew it. But the clock was still ticking. Maya turned back to the screen. She didn't argue. She just went back to work. Hour 5. The sun had set over Manhattan, turning the windows into black mirrors, reflecting the exhausted faces of 50 millionaires. Maya kept working, systematic, relentless. She was dismantling MathCore's reputation, line by line. She wasn't reading the code like a book. She was reading it like music. She found clusters of errors in the municipal bond algorithms, flaws that could have triggered a flash crash on Wall Street. Dr. Carter, eyes red-rimmed, verified each one. With growing horror. She's right again, Carter whispered to the Ford rep. The logic gates are reversed. In a high-volatility market, this would have liquidated the entire portfolio. Blake paced the back of the room like a caged tiger, and then he started. The psychological warfare. Getting tired, Maya? He sneered, leaning over her shoulder. Finding a few typos is easy. But this is enterprise architecture. Your little brain must be melting. Maya didn't even look up. I'm okay, Mr. Blake. I'm starting to understand how your programmers think. They make the same mistake over and over again. It's like they're copying off a bad test paper. Hour 12, midnight. The room was littered with empty coffee cups and takeout containers. The live stream viewer count hit 6 million. Betting pools were opening on DraftKings. Over-under, on Maya finding 500 errors. She had found 400. But as the night wore on, fatigue began to pull at her. Her head bobbed. Rosa, standing guard like a statue for 12 hours, gently touched her shoulder. Mija, Rosa whispered, you need to rest. Let's go home. No, Mommy, Maya said, rubbing her eyes, smearing sleep across her cheek. If I stop, the bad code wins. Blake saw the weakness. Call it off, he announced to the room. Look at her. This is abuse. We're torturing a child to prove a point. We are not calling it off. The Toyota CEO said from the corner, voice sharp. He hadn't left. None of them had. They were witnessing history. Hour 16, 4 a.m. The city outside was asleep, but inside MathCore, the nightmare was waking up. Maya pulled up the hospital management system, the software controlling IV drips and heart monitors in 3 states. She frowned. Mr. Blake, this isn't a mistake. This is a door. A what? A door, Maya said. Bad people can walk right in. They can see the sick people's names. They can change the medicine numbers. Absurd, Blake scoffed. Our security protocols are NSA grade. You wouldn't understand encryption. Dr. Carter ran a deep diagnostic. She went white. Harrison? She's right. It's a hard-coded admin bypass. Anyone with the IP address can access patient records without a password. It's wide open. Hour 22. Maya was running on pure adrenaline now. She had flagged over 600 critical errors, but Blake kept moving the goalposts. Finding them isn't enough, he shouted, voice hoarse. You have to understand the deployment strategy, the QA process. You're just pointing at cracks in the sidewalk. I understand that your computers are scared, Maya said, voice thin, with exhaustion. They just want clear instructions. Hour 24, the deadline. The buzzer on Blake's phone went off. Maya slumped back in the oversized chair. She had identified 847 distinct errors. She had saved the autonomous driving division, the financial trading desk, and the hospital network. She had essentially saved the company from 3 separate federal indictments. The room was silent. 6 million people online held their breath. Well, Harrison, the Toyota CEO said, standing up, buttoning his jacket. Does the child get her 100 million? Blake stood at the head of the table. He looked at Maya. He looked at the executives. He looked at the cameras. His face cycled. Panic. Calculation. And then a terrifying resolve. He wasn't going to pay. He was going to pivot. Ladies and gentlemen, Blake announced, voice smooth, regaining that practiced TED Talk cadence. I need to make an important clarification. The room stiffened. These aren't programming errors, Blake declared, gesturing grandly at the screens, filled with Maya's red flags. These are evidence of corporate sabotage. A murmur rippled through the room. Our systems have been deliberately compromised by external hackers, Blake lied, eyes gleaming. This is cyber warfare. We are victims here. The live stream comments exploded. Espionage. Russian hackers. Maya looked up from the workstation. She tilted her head, confused. Mr. Blake, she asked, voice cutting through the noise. Why would hackers make the exact same spelling mistakes your programmers make? Blake froze. What? The bad code, Maya explained, pointing to the screen. It uses your company's style, the same spacing, the same variable names, the same way they capitalize the comments. Even the spelling errors are the same. Dr. Head. Carter rushed to the keyboard. She pulled up the internal coding style guide and compared it to the so-called malicious backdoors. My God, Carter whispered, it matches. Down to the indentation rules. That's impossible. Blake yelled, sweat flying. Hackers could have reverse engineered our style. Mr. Blake, Maya interrupted. Gentle, look at the timestamps. The bad code was written at the exact same time as the good code. To the second. Dr. Carter checked the file history. She's right. These vulnerabilities weren't injected later. They were built in. During development, Maya looked at him with pity. This isn't hackers, Mr. Blake. Your training program taught your people to write code this way. You've been teaching them the wrong way. For years, the truth hung in the air, undeniable, devastating. It wasn't sabotage. It was systemic, top-down incompetence. Blake searched for an exit. There wasn't one. The auto executive stared at him with open disgust. And just as the Toyota CEO opened his mouth to demand Blake's resignation, Maya's eyes drifted back to the financial screen, the one with the stealing code. She squinted. Wait, Maya said. This part is different. Different how? Dr. Carter asked. The spelling, Maya said, pointing to a variable named Phantom Ledger. This part doesn't have any mistakes. It's perfect. It's the only perfect code in the whole system. Maya looked at Dr. Carter. Who writes perfect code, Dr. Carter? Because whoever wrote this isn't one of the students. It's the teacher. Dr. Carter froze. She stared at the code. She recognized the syntax. She recognized the way the loops were nested. Slowly, terrifyingly, she turned her head to look at Harrison Blake. And for the first time, Blake didn't look angry. He looked like a man who knew the gun was finally pointed at him. But Blake wasn't looking at Carter. He was looking at the camera, trying to spin a story that kept him out of federal prison. Why did you blame hackers? Maya asked. Her voice wasn't accusatory. It was curious. Why did you say bad people broke in when you knew your own people? Left the door open? The question hung in the air like poison gas. 6 million people on the live stream had just watched a billionaire get fact-checked by a second grader. The chat was exploding. Fraud, RICO, indictment. Blake knew he couldn't win on facts. The code was right there, on the screen. So he did what desperate men always do. He stopped arguing the facts and started arguing fear. You know what? Blake said, voice dropping to a somber, responsible baritone. He turned his back on Maya and addressed the investors. Even if she's right about the code, she's wrong about the consequences. He gestured to the wall of screens, traffic grids, hospital monitors, financial tickers. These aren't just lines of text, Blake said. These are load-bearing walls. Our infrastructure is a delicate ecosystem, balanced on a razor's edge. You start pulling out bad code blindly, and the whole building comes down. He looked directly at the Toyota CEO. Think about the liability. He wrote she. If we implement unauthorized patches from an 8-year-old and a single car crashes, we're looking at class action lawsuits in the trillions. We're looking at the end of your company, not just mine. The fear campaign was working. The Toyota CEO shifted in his seat. The BMW director frowned, tapping his pen against his chin. Nervous. They were businessmen, not engineers. They understood risk management better than syntax. Dr. Carter, Blake pressed, seeing the opening. You know I'm right. The legal department would never clear this. It's reckless. It's criminal negligence. But Harrison, Carter started, the systems are broken. We have to manage the risk, Blake shouted, cutting her off. We don't gamble with human lives, based on the intuition of a child who thinks code is a coloring book. The room shifted. The adrenaline of Maya's victory was fading, replaced by something colder, harder. Corporate dread. Maya watched them. She saw the adults retreat into shells of caution. She saw the doubt in their eyes. And for the first time in 24 hours, she looked small. Maybe, Maya whispered, barely. She looked down at her sneakers. Maybe Mr. Blake is right. Rosa stepped forward, heartbreaking. She put a hand on Maya's shoulder. Mija, it's okay. You did good. We can go now. Exactly, voice dripping with faux sympathy. He walked over and knelt down, not to be eye level, to loom. You're a very bright girl, Maya. But the real world is complicated. It requires understanding regulations, compliance, insurance, things you just can't understand yet. He stood up, smoothing his suit jacket. Let's get you back to school. Leave the heavy lifting. To the professionals. The room was silent. Blake had done it. He had weaponized complexity to crush the truth. He had convinced a room full of geniuses that fixing the problem was more dangerous than ignoring it. Dr. Carter looked at the floor, defeated. The executives looked relieved. They finally had an excuse to do nothing. Maya looked at the screen one last time. The red error messages were still there, blinking, softly. Mr. Blake? Maya didn't look up at him. She looked at the hospital monitor. If the computers are confused, she asked, voice trembling, but clear. Won't people get hurt anyway? Blake froze. If the medicine machine gives the wrong pill, Maya continued, turning to look him in the eye, isn't that worse than fixing it? Isn't it scarier to keep broken things than to try to make them better? It was so simple, so clean, so logical. It cut through corporate BS like a laser. Blake opened his mouth to speak. Nothing came out because he had just argued they should keep dangerous systems running to avoid the risk of fixing them. He had argued for negligence. She's right, Dr. Carter said. She stood up straighter. The fear left her face. The real risk is doing nothing. We are currently operating with known critical failures. That is willful negligence. Fixing it is the only legal option we have. The Toyota CEO stood up, slow. He looked at Blake with cold fury. I agree, he said. The child stays. The fixes get implemented. Now. Blake felt the walls closing in. His psychological victory evaporated. He was back in the corner, and the corner was shrinking. He looked at Maya. He didn't see a child anymore. He saw a threat that needed to be neutralized. Not with logic, not with fear, with humiliation. He needed to attack her competence, directly. Embarrass her so badly, no one would trust a word she said. Fine, Blake snarled, dropping the mask. You want to play engineer? Let's see if you can handle a real crisis. He walked to the main server console and typed a command. That made Dr. Carter gasp. Harrison, what are you doing? Carter screamed. That's the live kernel. If she's a genius, Blake said, finger hovering over the execute key, she should be able to handle a live intrusion. Don't, Carter yelled. Blake pressed the key. On the main screen, the green lights didn't just turn red, they turned black. System purge initiated, the automated voice announced. Core logic deleting in T-minus 60 seconds. Fix that, Blake whispered to Maya, eyes wide, with madness, or the whole company dies. Right now, it was a bluff. Dr. Carter knew it. The Toyota CEO knew it. Even Blake, in the deepest recess of his panicked mind, knew it. If he pressed that key, he wasn't just firing an employee. He was detonating his own life. Slowly, his hand trembled, then fell away from the keyboard. The adrenaline crash hit. He looked gray, hollow. He wasn't a monster anymore, just a fraud, out of tricks. All right, Blake said, voice terrifyingly calm. Let's settle this. Once and for all. He gestured to his assistant, sweating through his suit. Pull up the Prometheus protocol. The assistant hesitated. Sir, that's classified. Do it. The main display shifted. Traffic grids vanished. Hospitals vanished. Replaced by a dense, swirling wall of code. So strange it didn't look like programming. It looked like alien symbols. This, Blake announced, grabbing a shred of his old arrogance, is our quantum encryption protocol. It protects $3 trillion in daily SWIFT transactions. If a single calculation is off by a decimal point, the global banking system doesn't just glitch, it collapses. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. This wasn't about phantom braking anymore or hospital records. This was the plumbing of the world economy. Blake turned to Maya with a cold, predatory smile. You want to play in the big leagues, kid? Fix this. He leaned in close. But understand, one mistake here doesn't crash a car. It crashes civilization. Maya looked at the wall. For the first time, she blinked. The code was dense, heavy with complex variables and non-linear logic. Even Dr. Carter looked nauseous, just staring at it. "Harrison," Carter whispered, grabbing his arm. "This is insane. She's 8. That is postgraduate quantum theory. You're setting her up to fail." "Exactly," Blake said, loud enough for the microphone to catch. "Real systems require real expertise, not party tricks from a janitor's daughter who learned to code by peeking through blinds." The auto executives traded looks. The Toyota CEO frowned, his earlier confidence wavering. The BMW director shook his head, checking the time. They were losing faith. The live stream chat slowed. 6 million people held their breath. They wanted the underdog to win, but the mountain suddenly looked too high. "Of course," Blake said, buttoning his jacket, sensing victory. "If this is too much for you, we can call it quits. No shame in admitting you've reached your limit. Go back to your coloring books." Maya didn't move. She stared at the screen, dark eyes tracking the flow of data, like a hawk watching a field mouse. "Mr. Blake," she asked, without looking away. "What? Do you understand all this code?" Blake straightened his tie. "I designed the core architecture myself. PhD from MIT. My dissertation was on quantum cryptography." "Then can you explain," Maya asked, pointing to a sluggish data stream in the corner. "Why it's running so slow?" Blake scoffed. "It's running at 60% efficiency. That is standard for quantum decryption. You trade speed for security. It's basic physics, Maya, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Look it up." Maya nodded. "Slow. But what if it could be faster and safer?" "Impossible," Blake snapped. "You can't have both." "I think you can," Maya said. "I think your quantum computer is making the same mistake as your car computer." Blake laughed, harsh, barking. "Quantum states don't use if-then statements, sweetie. This isn't basic. This is particle physics." "But underneath the hard math," Maya interrupted, voice cutting through his laughter, "the computer still needs clear instructions, right?" She walked up to the screen, tiny, against a towering wall of blue light. "Right here," she said, pointing to a line buried deep in the subroutine. "The computer is trying to check if the key fits the lock. But instead of testing the key, it keeps changing the lock." Blake rushed over. "Don't be stupid. The verification protocol doesn't use assignment operators. It uses..." He stopped. His face went milk white. "But this part does," Maya said. "Simple. The part that talks to the regular computers. The bridge." Doc Carter pushed past Blake. She traced the logic path Maya found. Her eyes widened. "Oh my God." "What?" the Toyota CEO demanded. "What is it?" "She found the bottleneck," Carter whispered, voice trembling with awe. "The quantum processor is generating perfect encryption, but the interface layer, the bridge to the banking servers, has the same syntax error we found in the cars. It's rewriting the variable instead of checking it. That's not possible," Blake stammered. "Even if it's true," Maya continued, finishing his thought, "the risk is 0, because I'm not changing the quantum math. I'm just changing how you ask the math questions." The room went dead silent. "It's like having a really smart friend," Maya explained, to a room of stunned adults. "He knows the answer to everything, but you keep asking him the wrong questions, so he gets confused." Dr. Carter didn't wait for permission. She typed the fix. One line, one symbol. The screen flickered. The efficiency bar on the right didn't creep up. It jumped. 60%, 80, 94. The fans in the server room spooled down to a whisper. The system wasn't struggling anymore. It was flying. "Efficiency is at 94%, Carter announced, voice breaking. "Security protocols are holding. Throughput just tripled. Harrison, the system is perfect." Blake stood frozen, his masterpiece, his MIT dissertation, his life's work, perfected in 30 seconds by a girl not old enough to have a bank account. The executives erupted. Whispers turned into shouts. "How many other systems have this problem?" the Toyota CEO asked, stepping forward. Maya looked around at the dozens of screens. "All of them," she said. "Every system that talks to another system. They're all having confused conversations." Blake felt the floor drop out from under him. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't a few bugs. His company had been crippled for years, and it wasn't the code. It was the culture. "Mr. Blake?" Maya asked, turning to him with devastating innocence. "Why did you teach your programmers to write confused instructions?" The question hit him like a punch, not malice, Incompetence, so deep it shattered his identity. Dr. Carter was already pulling up other systems, applying Maya's grammar fix to the interface layers. Green lights popped up everywhere. The entire math core network woke up from a coma. But just as the room began to celebrate, Maya's eyes drifted back to the quantum screen. She frowned. Dr. Carter? Yes, Maya? Carter beamed, high on adrenaline. You said this system protects the money, right? $3 trillion a day, Carter confirmed. Maya pointed to a tiny, pulsing line of code at the very bottom of the screen, a line hidden by the sluggish performance until now. Then why? Maya asked, voice dropping to a whisper that silenced the room. Is the money going to an address that doesn't exist? Dr. Carter froze. She looked at the address. It wasn't a bank routing number. It was a coordinate string. That's not a bank, Carter said. Blood running cold. That's a GPS location. Harrison Blake stood frozen. For 24 hours, he fought to keep his incompetence hidden. Now, something worse was leaking out. Where is it? The Toyota CEO demanded, voice slicing through the room. Where is our money going? Dr. Carter typed the coordinates into a satellite map. The room held its breath. The map zoomed in, past the oceans, past the continents, down to a single, isolated island in the Caribbean. It zoomed closer. A compound, a private server farm, and right next to it, a yacht dock. Blake's knees gave out. He grabbed the back of a leather chair to stay upright. He recognized that dock. Ladies and gentlemen, the Toyota CEO announced, voice trembling with rage and awe. I think we have witnessed something unprecedented. This child has not only earned her $100 million, she has just uncovered the largest embezzlement scheme in corporate history. Blake opened his mouth to object, to spin, to lie, but the air had left his lungs. Maya stood quietly, in the center of the storm. She didn't know what embezzlement meant. She just knew the math finally added up. But the celebration didn't last. The double doors burst open. The head of security, a man who looked like he chewed gravel for breakfast, stormed in. He wasn't looking at Maya. He was looking at Blake. Sir, he barked, ignoring the investors, we have a code red. The FBI Cyber Division just breached the lobby. They have a warrant. A warrant? Blake whispered. For what? For you, sir? The security chief pointed to the screen Maya had just cleared. When the girl fixed the bottlenecks, the system purged the cache. It didn't just speed up the network. It flushed out the ghost logs. Ghost logs? Dr. Carter asked. Hidden traffic, the chief said. Grim. For 18 months, someone has been siphoning proprietary data out the back door, vehicle schematics, patient records, trading algorithms. The lag wasn't a bug, it was camouflage. The system was slow because it was uploading terabytes of stolen data to that island. The room went deadly silent. The auto executives turned to Blake with the synchronized precision of a firing squad. You mean to tell me, the BMW director said, voice dangerously low, that while you were lecturing us about corporate risk, you were selling our trade secrets on the black market? No, Blake stammered, backing away. I didn't know. I swear. The sluggish performance, I thought it was just the quantum overhead. I didn't know. Maya raised her hand. Mr. Blake, he looked down at her, terrified. Does this mean the bad people were using your confused computers to hide? Yes, Dr. Carter answered for him, voice hard. And if you hadn't fixed the confusion, Maya, they would have gotten away with it. Forever. The sound of heavy boots echoed in the hallway. The FBI was coming up the elevator. News helicopters were already circling the building. What started as a tech demo had turned into a federal crime scene, and the stock market was reacting. In real time, MathCore's stock wasn't just dropping. It was being halted by the SEC. Blake looked around the room. Furious investors, betrayed staff, and then Maya. She wasn't looking at him with hate. She was looking at him with pity. The door swung open. A team of agents in windbreakers swarmed the room. Harrison Blake, the lead agent, announced, "Step away from the console." As they handcuffed the billionaire who had tried to humiliate a child, Blake stopped. He turned his head. Wait, Blake said, 1 minute. The agents paused. Blake looked at Maya. All the arrogance, the Ivy League posturing, the cruelty, gone. He looked like a man who had finally woken up from a long, expensive dream. I owe someone an apology, Blake said, voice cracking, and a check. He looked at the Toyota CEO. Pay her everything. Liquidate my personal assets, if you have to. He turned back to Maya. Maya Williams, Blake said, tears finally spilling over. You didn't just win a bet, you saved the truth. I formally apologize for underestimating you. I thought intelligence required a degree. I was wrong. It requires clarity, and you are the clearest thing I have ever seen. Maya smiled, not triumphant, just tired, the smile of someone who wanted to go home and watch cartoons. It's okay, Mr. Blake, she said, soft. Grown-ups make mistakes too. You just made a really big one. The agents led him away, and the room erupted, not polite applause, a roar. The live stream chat became a blur, hearts, crying emojis. 7 million people had just watched the impossible happen. Dr. Carter knelt beside Maya. Do you know what you did today, Maya? You didn't just fix a computer. You saved an industry. Maya shrugged, grabbing her mother's hand. I just asked the right questions. In the weeks that followed, the world changed. Not all at once, but enough. Companies started hiring, fresh eyes consultants, people with no experience, but plenty of perspective. Universities launched programs for unconventional thinkers, and parents started listening, really listening. When their kids asked, why? Maya got her check. Rosa bought a house with big windows she never had to clean herself. But the real legacy wasn't the money, it was the silence. In boardrooms across America, when a young person raised their hand, executives didn't roll their eyes anymore. They listened, because you never know if the person sitting in the corner, invisible, overlooked, is the only one who can hear the music, when the rest of the world is just making noise. So the next time someone tells you, you're too young, too inexperienced, that you don't have the right degree, remember Maya, and ask yourself, are they right? Or are they just looking at the hard parts, while you're the only one seeing the truth?